Okay. We are. Everything seems to be going good. We are live. We're streaming through some new tech, so I hope it sounds all right out there. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. It's starting to warm up a little bit. We're getting into the single digit negatives up here.
Warming
So
up to single digits.
getting up to the
Next.
single digit negatives. That's right. And yeah, hopefully we'll have an early spring. Um, because Groundhog Day already happened, but I think the groundhog saw his shadow. But
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't hold too much credence there. Usually spring's usually always like what, March 16th, something like that.
Yeah.
Whether or not the weather complies, that's a whole another bag of worms. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm doing well. And how are things going with you, sir?
Oh, they've been going really well. It was so cold. It was cold everywhere. And then it warmed up. We were 65 degrees. And
Wow,
then it's dropping back down to cold, but not as cold. We had a few days at 65. It felt so good.
I can only imagine. I
Yeah, it
love
was,
some 65 weather up here.
yeah. It was hard the whole country seemed to be just going through some cold spots.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, we've got some cold spots, then we got some warm fronts, and now we're getting some cold spots again. It's crazy is where I am, it warmed up, but we got like almost 10 centimeters of snow.
oh, yeah.
So yeah,
We
it's
haven't gotten any snow this year down here
oh
in Utah.
well, you're lucky. I mean, snow is fun to look at and okay to play in, but everything else you need to just get it out of the way.
Yeah, yeah. I like it snow up in the mountains
Hmm.
and just snow lightly on the weekend.
Yeah, that's I mean, the sweet spot is it falls and then it just goes away. Just
Yeah, yep.
because it's a
You
lot
got
easier
it.
to deal with than rain. Because when rain, you either you get soaked, you get drenched, and then you get floods or what have you. But with snow, it's slower. You can brush it off before it melts, and you can go on about your business.
Yeah, yeah. Not enough to impact the roads and driving.
Right.
It got so cold that I mean everything was just frozen over, and you're constantly hitting ice everywhere. If it had snowed any,
Hmm.
we'd have had more moisture on the road.
That was always my fun game I used to play when I'd be out in California or if I was in any of the other southern states where winter is not really a season. When you do get that cold front in or when ice starts to form, you can tell which people are from like the north or Canada based on the
Yeah,
fact that they're out on the road driving and there's like it's like nothing to them.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
I
yeah,
got
we're still
pictures
going
of snow.
65 here. Why not? It's fine.
Yeah. Or you go down and you see some people wearing jackets and other people wearing t-shirts and they're loving it. It's
Oh,
30 degrees and they're in a t-shirt going, oh, it's warm.
that was me my first year in LA because I started in April, so it was still kind of cold out there at least for them. And I'm wearing these like nice, professional looking, but they're shorts, like kind of khakis and stuff, nice shoes, t-shirt with collar. And I walk into the office and everybody's wearing like two or three layers, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're just like,
I'm the guy
how are
that
you?
wears shorts and a coat.
Yeah, it's like, are you crazy? I said, no, it's beautiful outside. It's like it's freezing, and they're telling me like, it's 40. It's like, yeah, that's like 12 in Canada. That's still t-shirt weather.
That's three-fourths of our year.
Yeah.
We want it that, or we want it warmer than that.
I do better in the waters. When you're in the cold, sometimes it's kind of bad for your skin. It dries out fast
Oh
and all
yeah.
that stuff. So yeah, I like the warm weather. So I'm hoping for the weather to be get warmer sooner rather than later, and I'm hoping to be able to return back to the states a few more times this year. Um, but yeah, I mean this is the month of romance in the air, and also kind of getting out of the January slump when it comes to like movies and other stories out there. So yeah, we've got an interesting script this week. So with that being said, let's get started. Now that looks like almost everybody's here. Welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs, discussing scripts both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I am your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me this week is Jake from 52 Movies a Year. So happy to have you back, sir. Um, we've got a this will be our, I guess, our second script this month in the realm of romance and drama. This week's script placed eighth with 24 votes on the blacklist. It's titled "Clean Break." It's written by Ryan Brennan. Jake, please share with us the log line for "Clean Break."
A traveling pool hustler meets the man of her dreams, but ruins it out of fear, only to find her ex wanting revenge.
Yes. The synopsis is as such: Mary, a hair trigger pool hustler, has her hedonistic lifestyle all figured out until she meets Ray, a fellow pool shark. Will she change her ways and let herself fall in love, or just kill him and make a break for it? Uh, so, pretty succinct setups for this type of script. It definitely has a solid voice to it. What were your initial thoughts when you read this week's script, Jake?
I thought it was a great script for the romance in February. Not that I love the romantic comedies or the dramas but I do like date movies
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of movies I want to go see, and I like it when there's one my wife wants to go see. Um, whenever I see something that's romance or drama, I think, well, would my wife want to watch this or not? And we need more of them. So I thought I thought it had good characters all the way through. It was a pretty easy read.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was a fast read of I could follow what everything was going. Not a ton of characters, but felt like it didn't need a ton of characters. It was nice being around them and their world and just people in and out of their orbit. So
Yep.
I thought it was
I share similar sentiments. I mean, we start off kind of like hitting the ground running with the introduction of Mary, who's in her early 30s, and she's sporting some red hair. And the screenplay makes it specific that this is set in like the early 2000s or early to mid 2000s. So it's
yeah.
kind of a period piece. And it also has like a hodgepodge of tones between like American Psycho and True Romance and some of those other indie films of the 90s era, because Mary has this inner monologue that we get to hear about her situation, her commentary on the stuff that's happening around her, and then, of course, her 5 rules for life. Um, and the rules are pretty simple. It's like, number 1 is take responsibility for your life. Number 2 is always speak your mind. Don't sugarcoat anything. Number 3 is to be alone, because attachments can cause distractions and setbacks. Number 4 is pursue pleasure and consciously and constantly do it. And then number 5 is have a trade and be really, really good at it. And we see her living all of these things to the point where she hustles a guy at the pool hall and gets like a good few $100 out of him. And she's very, very good at this, and it's established through clever visuals that she has been playing pool since probably the time she could walk, because she has a picture of herself with her mom as a kid at a pool hall. So and every time she enters in a pool hall, the writer Ryan Brennan really describes that as this is like a religious experience to her. She's going into her place of worship, her church of sorts, and she's feeling out the room, and she feels out for the right pool cue and the right table and everything, and then she starts going to work essentially. And I liked how this conveyed it well to the point where we're jumping to kind of like the most interesting part of her life, in the sense that it's not she's learning how to play pool. It's she has mastered it now, and now we're seeing her take that mastery and use it to make a living in a very dubious way.
Yeah, and that made me wonder, kind of a side note, how much do people make being pro? Because you always hear about people hustling.
Yeah.
So and I don't even think you have to be very good at pool to understand, when they're hustling pool, or they're just playing for winner takes. You keep adding to the pot or you increase the pot.
Right.
We've all seen that in movies or we've watched people play pool. It was pretty easy to follow what
And
the hustle was without having to understand how to play pool.
right. And one of the things I liked that the script does quite early is establish the fact that the reason Mary hasn't gone to, say, the more honest and professional route of pool and sports is because she's found out that the money is not really there uh, in the same density, I guess,
Yeah.
or the same value compared to what she can do traveling around the country, hitting pool halls and hustling uh, every night. Because in some cases she could pull in 2 to 5 grand a night, whereas professional pool playing, or at least going through those ranks, is considered a little bit less of until you hit that certain threshold, which can take years, even if you are like the best in your division. So
Yeah.
we get that she has a she's attracted to this type of lifestyle because it's played by her rules. If she needs money, she goes to the pool hall. She gets it, and then she starts spending it on, you know, makeup and drinks and nice food, and then travel expenses. She doesn't really live in a proper apartment. She kind of rents hotels and Airbnbs, and those oh, like those short lease apartments where it's like, okay, yeah, we'll rent you this apartment on a weekly basis type of thing.
Yeah.
That's her lifestyle, and
And
it's
she likes it because of her rules fit within that.
oh yeah, and she has a ton of control. Now, what's really cool is that this we get right into her pattern with this script. So the screenwriter Ryan Brennan does a really good job of establishing her routine and how she works. So first of all, she dresses up as kind of sexy as possible, but within the realms of someone that would be a pool player or at least interested in pool, and also dresses a little bit for comfort as well. And then she plays the innocent long enough so that she can kind of hook them in, so that we understand what the rules are with regards to the grift. She'll play and she'll maybe not play as well, miss hitting a ball or scratch. Um, really kind of mess with the opposite with her opponent until she's willing to say double or triple the bet, and then when they agree, she takes them for all they've got.
Yeah.
And it plays in well because she's not just using her skill, she's also using her seduction as a woman to weaken her opponent. And within the first act, we see her just really killing it out on the pool table, and everybody is trying to, they're lining up to play her and try and beat her, and they keep losing. And then she beats this one guy who we don't really get a name from. I think it's like Wade or something, but she ends up beating him, and while she's heading back to a car, the guy comes up after her, and he kind of like wants to challenge her to get his money back. And the moment that he grabs her shoulder, she turns around and just shoots him twice in the chest, and
Yeah.
he just goes down. And she immediately hops in her car and takes off, getting out of the state, and then complains about the fact that she has to change her hair color because she liked being a redhead. So then she dyes it brunette.
Yeah.
and we see that she is really a cold human being. But as we were talking about a little bit before the show, she's a cold human being. She got a lot of arrogance, but there's a charm underneath in the way that she behaves arrogantly. It's like, yeah, if we were to see this person in person, this character in person in real life, we'd be very annoyed by them. But because we've got this separation where we're watching them from a distance and we're watching them interact with other people that are also of ill repute, it's kind of entertaining to see her have this type of grandiose personality and arrogance to her, because it's like we know this is kind of a shield to prevent her from being vulnerable, but she's also having fun with it. And she's also saying things that I'm certain many people who, when they find themselves in the situation, would love to be able to say, yeah, I wish I could say that at the time in person, that eloquently, that quickly. And so you just kind of buy into her, right?
Yeah, it appeals to the more base part of our lives. I mean, yeah, we've all bit our tongue when we wanted to say something mean because we're being nice, and in real life, really being nice being polite, being respectful gets you more than acting that way. But we all have that moment of, oh man, I wish I'd have said that.
Right.
Or I'm glad you said that. Watching somebody do it, we can live through their actions and not have to suffer the repercussions of it.
Exactly. So she pretty much hightails. I think she was in Florida when the story
Yeah.
starts, and she winds up in Texas.
Yeah, she's and I didn't even catch that at first. She stopped at a couple of places, hustled a couple of times, met some people. But yeah, pursuit, but Texas was the goal.
Texas was the goal. And one of the things that the writer does really well is he actually feathers in montages so that they feel in theme with the story. And because he uses the inner monologue narration really well, like very effectively, like it's treated like a journal as opposed to trying to be used merely for exposition.
Yeah,
And
give you the information you need to know, but I couldn't figure out a better way to do that.
right, like
Yeah.
it's instead of like having someone that she's mentoring or tutoring, throughout the story, she's got something like a personal log, kind of like Star Trek. Even though there's no date or time, it's just here's my random thought coming in here, and this is why I do the things that I do. And we find out that what she likes to do is she likes to flirt, she likes to play pool, she likes to sleep with good-looking guys, and then she'll rob them while they're on the recovery. And the other part too is she also doesn't care much about them. And one of the things that she does is like, okay, she'll direct the man to return to foreplay until she reaches her climax, and then she'll roll over and be like, okay, I'm going to bed now, and if you can take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. And then she wakes up extra early, and then she'll start picking off things in the guy's place that she either thinks of value or that she treats as like a trophy. And one of the things that really stood out, that stood out in the script and comes up a couple of times, is a mint condition Mickey Mantle rookie card that's been like slabbed. It's in like a protective case, and I thought that was kind of like, ooh, dang, she's like the script writer's like, she grabs it not knowing if it's valuable or not, but takes it anyways. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I hope that comes back into play.
Yeah. Only that it was posted to where she could see it.
Right.
And maybe she didn't need to know that it was valuable, but she knew that he knew it was valuable because it was protected. And she just
Yeah.
took it to be mean.
And she kind of took it to be mean. Yeah.
Because she wanted it. And that's what she wanted to do in that moment.
And that goes into her number 4 thing, which is pursue pleasure consciously and consistently. If she wanted that and it was going to give her pleasure in some way, she grabs it.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, this is like she's a mess, like a hot mess, like an attractive hot mess
Yeah.
and she has like a purse with a false bottom that's got tons of wads of cash in there for her. So she's always got the means to sort of cover her debts if she ends up losing in the game. But what we see here is that she doesn't lose until she gets to Texas. She meets this guy. She meets the bartender, orders a couple of drinks, does her thing to get players, and she ends up, swindling a couple of guys. And then this kind of lumberjack-looking fellow named Ray comes in and starts playing her for some smaller change, and then the ante keeps going up game after game. And then another guy named Hal, who's like described as this short, plump Asian guy, is kind of egging Mary, our main character, on because he wants to play her at pool. And
Yeah.
this Ray guy is like saying, "Back off, man. I want money. I want to win. And when we resolve this, then you can play." And of course, Hal is like, "Oh, sure, no problem, guys. I'll just wait back here. I'll just drink my my liquor and watch you guys, burn each other out," essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And what's fascinating is that Ray is the first player Mary has encountered that actually challenges her. And we have described for us a pretty intense set of pool games, which I think are like 5 in total. It's like the best of 5. it's the first of 5 wins. So I think they get to like 10 games in that night, and it's for a $5,000 pot. And Ray miraculously manages to win it, doing some pool maneuvers, manipulating the ball in like expert level ways. Like there's this one point where his ball that he has to sink is blocked by her ball, and so he ends up, instead of bouncing it off the bumpers or the rails, he manages to hit the ball with a spin so that it curves around her ball and hits his ball into the pocket, and he wins the game. And it's this miraculous shot that bewilders Mary. So much so that when Ray collects his money and then heads to his car, we are now in an identical scene with the roles reversed of Mary going after Ray, wanting to play him again. Only this time, instead of a gun being drawn and someone being shot, Mary is so kind of turned on by this loss that she ends up just planting one on Ray, and they're just going at it in the back of his truck. And this throws off Ray as well, because he's like, he was just there for money, but he's also enamored with Mary. And there's a couple of times in their encounter where Mary is seeing the $5,000 that she lost just kind of in a pocket or on a desk, and she's tempted to take it, but she doesn't. And I was wondering, like, what were your thoughts when you saw Mary kind of resist that temptation when it was presented to her?
I liked it because it definitely made it to where you knew she liked it, even though she was the whole night before she was upset while she was setting him up winning, he's setting her up winning, and then he ends up winning in the end. You could tell that ultimately upset her, but I expected her to shoot him, take the money. I expected her to run off with the money.
Yeah.
And then I loved when she actually wakes up and he's gone.
Yeah, she's the one that falls asleep and he's already up and gone.
And I'm like,
nothing of
I
hers
like
is
that
taken.
because, yeah, I wish I would have taken the Mickey Mantle card.
Yeah.
That would have been funny. No, I liked it. And I think right up to that point, I was like, I really liked that interaction and the way they met, where they did such a good job of showing, oh, she's getting everything she wants. Oh, wait, that just happened. And from her perspective, she's just blown away.
Yeah. And
someone can do that to her, and she was falling for it.
And the other part too is, like, this Ray character challenges her not just at pool, but challenges, some of her rules. Like, number one, to be the best at the trade that she is taken up to. Well, Ray is clearly better than her.
Yeah.
Number three, be alone. Well, she kind of wants to be with Ray. In fact, she ends up having to kind of hunt him down and find out where he is.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she goes back to the bar she was at again, and the owner doesn't like her because he realizes that she's a pool hustler, and the more she shows up to his establishment, the less likely he's going to have customers that are coming here buying drinks or even wanting to do anything there. So he doesn't want her around anymore.
I liked one of the lines he said to her. He says, "It's not just that you're a pool hustler and all that; it's that you're rude, and and you're mean." And I liked that because up until that point, we see her being who she wants to be, and that is, she wants to pick on a stranger, she picks on a stranger.
Yep.
She wants to hurt someone's feelings, she is rude. And I liked that the character was being challenged by people. She kind of walked in and went, she immediately judges everybody, and she has that, she's the character, she's setting people up for whether she can take advantage of them, who they are, what they can do. And that's another person that kind of, but it doesn't, there's no more interaction, but it was a good line to me, because it's part of her. Not only is Ray disrupting her life, but this guy's kind of giving her the third degree.
Yep.
But not in a, kind of more in a fatherly way, but kind of more of like, yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And
she's like, I know how to deal with
advice you're not going to take, but here it is. I liked that. I thought it stood out.
Yeah, because it was kind of like setting a marker for her. It's like, this is my evaluation of you, in case the audience hasn't picked it up yet. But regardless of that, this is my evaluation of you, and this is why you're going to be stuck in this rut that you have. And it's not until Hal, who's been listening this entire time, he's still at this bar, pipes up and says, "Yeah, I could probably help you find that Ray fellow." But it's not going to be cheap, and so she gives him 100, and he does this funny line. He's like, "Well, he's a little quiet and a little lonely. I think I think he needs a companion." And so Mary has to give him another $100 bill, and then he points her to this like truck stop bar, and then finds Ray there as well, and they just kind of hit it off a little bit better, and kind of exchange verbal blows, but eventually they kind of get into this rhythm where they start working together, where they hustle, they go back to one of their places, they then get up, go do their other responsibilities, then meet up at another place, and kind of repeat over and over again, to the point where you realize that these two are actually kind of falling for each other a lot, and they end up going on a date to this like late night type of truck stop that's like a barbecue steakhouse, and they just have a simple meal, and you find out that Ray kind of works there on the side, as well as being a lumberjack and stuff, because he can't hustle the pool hall every night because it'll create suspicion, so he has to come up with characters. He has to go to different areas at different points, and he's been in Texas for a little while. But we find out through Mary's and their kind of relationship as it goes, is they've been like almost all over the eastern seaboard to like every pool hall that's a good spot to hustle, and they're just trading stories. And it's sleazy in the sense that they've been extorting all of these people for their money by way of pool, but they're finding out that they have a lot of similarities, even though Ray has his own set of rules, which we don't know what they are in detail, but we do know that they're not identical to Mary's rules, because he understands what his responsibility is as a hustler, to keep himself gainfully employed, if you want to call it that. but he doesn't have like a rule of like being alone, and he doesn't always speak his mind, and he doesn't really try to do things just to pursue pleasure, because as their relationship continues and they're figuring out what they are, all Ray really cares about is just doing whatever he can do to make Mary happy and still be with him. And it's something that Mary has never seen before. She's really smitten by it, and it kind of scares the crap out of her.
Yeah, to someone who's a hustler, she's expecting to be hustled all the time, and when something's real and genuine, it's got to be like, what's the angle?
Yeah, this
I
is
don't
too good to be
understand
true.
this angle.
Yeah,
When one of her things is be alone, it's like, well, this isn't, you only do this when you want something, but you got to go back to being alone. So I can see that her world's kind of being challenged. But
it is, and I like the fact that the moment she starts to get a little vulnerable is the moment where they get into their first fight, because she ends up going into a bar and finding Ray playing pool against this like trophy wife, who I guess has been recently divorced, so she has a lot of money to burn. And it's the first time Ray doesn't give her a subtle wink or signal, visual cue, that's kind of like their code of saying like, my eye is only for you type of thing.
yeah,
And she gets really annoyed by it, to the point where while he's going up to the bar to order drinks, he is quickly trying to have a speech with her, saying like, listen, you cannot be so obvious right here, because I'm working this woman over for a lot of money, and what you're going to do is going to ruin it. And she gets really indignant on that, and then storms out. But the next morning, Ray shows up with flowers and is there to apologize, saying that he didn't handle that conversation with her the way he wanted to. And Mary is wondering like, okay, well, how how many games of pool did you play with that trophy wife divorcee, and how many of them were at the bar and how many of them were at your place? And he's basically saying like, no, no, it was all business, just getting the money and getting out. And she gives him this really embarrassing ultimatum, which he's like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to give me all your clothes, stand out here in the hall, and I'm going to go have a shower. And if you're still here when I'm done, then we'll talk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's something I've never been threatened with before. And I thought it was an interesting setup to that. What was going through your mind when you realized, okay, so Mary's upset, she's trying to get revenge and punishment on Ray. She hasn't pulled a gun out on him yet, but she then gives him this. What were your thoughts on
You
that
know,
choice?
that was a really good scene. And it was really the time where I was 100% all in on Mary's character and Ray's character and just being the way that they are, because um, this is where I probably started assigning, in my own head, an actor and actress to play him.
Mm-hmm.
I could start seeing it probably based on other movies. And usually that's about the point where I'm wanting to see the movie, I'm wanting to see somebody. I'm starting to think who would be good to play them. And yeah, I liked it because she's reacting the way that she does because she does everything selfishly,
Mm-hmm.
and she's still confused by everything that he does because it's just so, she doesn't trust it. She doesn't trust the way she's feeling. That would have been a great moment for humor. Like, you don't even have it in but he's standing there covering himself up, neighbors walking by, how you doing, refuses to leave. That could be some really funny moments, just 30 seconds of it, 5 seconds of it.
5-10 seconds of it. The whole, like, some lady's like, I'm gonna call the cops. Like, well, no, hold on, my girlfriend's just in there waiting for
Yeah.
her.
What are you doing out here? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the situation was great comedy. I mean, I didn't see that coming. I liked it. I mean, she's being mean to him, he's being sincere,
Mm-hmm.
she's being mean, but I'm enjoying watching this happen. I feel for him. A little bit feel for her because I understand she's just like, her world's turning upside down in a way.
Yeah, and she wasn't sure what to make of what happened the previous night, but
She could only see him going home with that lady because that's what she did. She
right.
doesn't do it now, so she expected he did,
Oh,
but because she would
exactly.
have.
She's judging him by what she would have done
Yeah,
if the roles were reversed, as opposed to just paying attention as to what his actual goals were, and seeing that the goal was money, not relationship. And with her, he's sticking around, and that's conveyed quite effectively because after she completes her shower and she opens the door, he's still there, and he's just like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere, but it is cold out here, even though for Texas. And if I can come inside, that might save us the cops from showing up. And so she lets him in, and they kind of they reconcile. And
yep.
then they start going back to the hustle, and they've got um this really cool thing working for them. There's a point where they've got their own tables, they're hustling. This one guy comes up and just kind of grabs at Mary, and Ray shows up and basically just plants the dude's face right into the pool table. And she gets a little upset by that, but Ray kind of conveys to her, is like, you probably could have hit him hard and done some damage, not as nearly as he did, but done some damage, but that would have killed your game for the rest of the night because nobody would come up and play you again because they knew that you could take care of yourself or at least would fight back. So
I
because he did that, that saved her streak for the rest of the night. And when she
Yeah,
realized that's what he did for her, it just, again, you've chipped more away of that shield that she's got pulled up, getting closer to her soul. And I thought, man, this is some really clever dynamics with regards to what Ray would do for her. And what's also interesting is that she doesn't have opportunities to reciprocate that in the same way, other than the fact that she hasn't taken off to go to another state.
yeah. Even though out of the two, you see that she's, I guess, I guess you can tell she's uncomfortable or not uncomfortable. She's enjoying herself,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a new world,
Yeah.
and she's master of her old world. This is, and so it's you feel for her because the selfish, hustler wants to just go move on, but the part of her that fights that third be alone wants to be there. So the conflict she's having is pretty clear. It's pretty easy, and it's relatable, understandable, and enjoyable to watch or listen to.
And the thing is that all this stuff happens. Um, it feels like it happens really quick, but we're like in the late 60s of in page count of
Yeah,
this story, because while we're getting a lot of familiarity with regards to they go to a bar, they play pool, they hustle, they get their money, they copulate afterwards, they're having fun. Her vulnerability is making her really uncomfortable because she's liking her position with Ray, but to what you said earlier, Jake, it's kind of she's breaking rule number 3, and it's really messing her up inside because Ray is becoming a far more serious relationship than she ever expected. It's almost like she's found the guy that she's going to be with for the rest of her life, and she doesn't know how to deal with those emotions because this is the first time those emotions have ever manifested in her.
yeah,
And he Ray, to his credit, he's the type of guy who he doesn't have any fear about Mary other than just hurting her feelings or letting her down. So he is really committed to her, and you get the sense that like if he knew he would not scare Mary off right away, he'd probably drop down on one knee and propose to her. Like you just feel it there. There's huge chemistry between these two. Um,
yeah,
and you're rooting for them the entire way because you're like, okay, yeah, these two found themselves. They're a Bonnie and Clyde type of duo, except in this case, Bonnie doesn't have a wandering eye. She's fully in on Clyde. Um, and when Mary kind of realizes that this is the case, it really does freak her out. But we get this sense that it freaks her out, but it doesn't necessarily make her feel terrified. And so she decides to challenge Ray and say, "Listen, how committed to me are you?" And he's like, "I'll do whatever I can to make you happy." And she's like, "I want to role play." And he's like, "Okay, we've done that before." She's like, "No, I want to role play like this." And she's like, she has basically a very edgy and controversial fantasy that she wants to do with Ray. That Ray is apprehensive of, but if that's what she wants, he's going to do it. And so she's like, this is how it's going to play out. And Ray's like, okay, anything for you, babe. And so they go to this bar. She's all dolled up. She orders some drinks. Ray comes in there, all machismo, and starts hitting on her. She kind of like rejects him a little bit and flirts a little bit. And then he does a couple of games of pool, comes back around, says, "Hey, how about you and I get out of here?" She's like, "Nope." She gets up, goes on her own, heads over to her car. Ray, pursues. Again, we're in a similar context as what we've seen twice already. Once in Florida, again with their initial encounter between
yeah.
Ray and Mary, but again, roles are reversed this time. And he's playing into the role. She's playing into the role. He's getting a little rough with her outside. And then all of a sudden, she draws out her pistol and shoots him 3 times in the chest. And Ray drops. And he is shocked and in many facets, not just for being shot 3 times, but also for the fact that the woman he loves shot him 3 times. And your first instinct when you read this is thinking, oh, okay, she's a cold-hearted, demon of sorts. This is her plan all along. But the script doesn't go in that direction. The script goes to something way more interesting, which is that she has immediate guilt and regret and fear and panic, and she lunges for Ray to try and do something, but there's a guy in the parking lot that saw the event, and he gets involved, and he grabs Mary and holds on to her and says, don't panic, it's okay. This is a stand-your-ground state. I saw what he was doing to you. I'll be your witness. Everything you said and everything that you did was right. You're okay. And she's screaming, trying to say, no, you don't understand. It's not what it looks like, what have you. And everything is kind of just freaking out. And so she doesn't know what to do. So she literally like hops into her car, manages to like knee and elbow this guy that's trying to protect her or what have you. Gets into her car,
Yeah.
takes off, and she immediately like trims her hair, dyes it blonde, leaves the state to Louisiana, hawks the gun that she used to shoot Ray, and she's like he's clearly dead. She doesn't know how to deal with it. Her iPod is not working anymore, so she can't listen to music. She can't drown out anything. She can't find pleasure in anything that she does. No drinking. Doesn't even show interest in actually like trying to be with any other men. She just can't do it. And I thought this was like a really cool beat because you were talking a little bit about before the show, like Mary's motivation and the regret. So let me throw it to you, Jake. How are you liking this twist in the script at this point, and what was your thoughts going on about Mary and what the writer was doing with her?
The first time I read it as I didn't like Mary as much because she's not a likable character.
Right.
And when she does this, I jump back to I was just starting to like her. Now I'm back to okay, I don't like her, and I'm like I don't like reading a script or a story that I don't like the character. I mean, I might understand what they're doing, but I don't like them. But it was the words that she said, and I read, and more the second time reading the script, that when she pulls out the gun and he's looking at her, she says, "You're getting in my way."
Right.
That was good line for us. And then so what really when I got from it was when she shoots him, he doesn't, oh, you call her names and scream and yell or get angry and show the person she's expecting. He's like, I really liked you.
Yeah.
And I think that tore her up more. I mean, it doesn't like keep repeating in her head, but I can picture that line just keep repeating in her head because that's not what she expected. She was just doing it. All right, it's I got to get away from this. This isn't who I am. She doesn't recognize herself. It's not that she's unhappy, but she's completely out of control. She's vulnerable, and I like that the whole relationship made her vulnerable because it makes her likable. If a person is like very pushy, very outgoing, very mean, very whatever, you got to see them get broke down to a certain point. Vulnerability is a good thing. Losing stuff like that, stuff that you can. How would I feel in that moment? You can relate to. You don't have to like everything they're doing, but at least you can relate to it. And so the second time reading it, I really liked it. The impact of I bought the impact of her guilt, her sorrow.
Yeah.
She no longer can enjoy her selfish lifestyle because she basically shoots him to go back to her selfish lifestyle. Shot people before, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
But she immediately finds out she can't even be mean to people. Everybody annoys her, but in a different way, but more that she's just unhappy.
She basically finds out that the life that she had was nowhere near as rewarding or pleasurable as the life that she was having with Ray. Her fear of what that future would be with her caused her to do this, and then dread the fact that the fear was nowhere near as terrible as his loss in her life.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, that's a hard lesson to learn and a hard way to learn. But
yeah,
that is what movies are about, man. Like I was thinking like, oh, dude, I am in now. She just killed the guy that she's in love with, and she was trying to deny the fact that she was in love with him. And the moment that she, squeezes off those rounds, she can't walk it back. She can't take it back. Like a lesser writer would have made this a fantasy dream that put her into a panic attack, and she never shot him to begin with. But no, props to the screenwriter here, Ryan Brennan. He's like, nope, I'm making sure that she shoots him.
Yeah.
And she's got to live with this. Yeah.
And one of the things that are giving him props, so I'm not an expert on voiceover, like I was telling you before the show. Sometimes I'm like, okay, is this meant to I'm telling you what happened while it's happening so you have more knowledge in the story, or is just an omniscient, okay, this is what I'm doing, but really this is a situation that I should be thinking, or this is why I'm thinking that. I
Hmm.
enjoy it. I don't have a problem with it. But after she's trying to live her go back to her lifestyle, it there's no voiceover. And I thought, wow, okay, I get voiceover now. I get what he's trying to do. She's her voiceover is reinforcing to herself, this is the way you want to live, this is the way you want to live.
Right.
You're doing all this because this is who you are and you're happy. And here where she's I thought that was a good visual, I guess not visual, part
It,
of the script
yeah,
where
it's a good
that
story.
leaves. She's alone. It kind of
Hmm.
reinforces that she's alone.
It forces that a part of herself died with Ray.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, that was basically her reinforcement of her own perspective and ideas. And the moment that she succumbed to that reinforcement and shot Ray, that reinforcement then no longer had any value because it she realizes that it was kind of a lie, a veneer of sorts to hide the very thing that she never thought she'd ever have, that then walked into her life and made it way better than what it was before. And she chose to take it away. And I thought, okay, great. So she's no longer got her inner monologue reinforcing her credo. She doesn't have music to occupy her mind with, so she's dwelling on her own thoughts, but her thoughts are so buried deep down that we no longer get to hear them as an audience. And she is lost because we get this really interesting beat before she commits to shooting Ray with this old lady that is at the same
Yeah.
complex that she's at. And the old lady is like, yeah, I was a wife. It was great. I mean, I didn't get to do a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of bored these days. But one thing I could never hate my husband for is that every time he looked at me, he made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. And that feeling is something that you can never get back once it's gone.
Yeah.
And she talks about how like she drives out to Louisiana to get this alcohol to bring it back here and drink it and get a brain freeze or what have you. But she's talking about how like she talks about the complexities of love, how she called her husband a hypocrite and a jerk, and she kind of hated him, but at the same time, this man took care of her, was dedicated to her, always loved her, treated her, mixed, but it was never abusive. Um,
Well, you get the sense that she's angry with him because he's gone.
oh yeah, and then you definitely
And
get that. He
so yeah,
checked out
she's
early, and she's stuck with nothing, and
yeah,
she's
and
upset.
so she's being mean to him, but she's not. She's kind of angry.
Yeah,
I'm alone. You're gone. Probably felt guilty about being angry later, but it's not her story, but
yeah.
it's understandable.
It
She can say these mean things without going, I just hate this is a character who's supposed to hate her husband. This
yeah
isn't a character who hates her husband.
no
This is a character who's going through something and she's just in her life momentarily.
yeah,
I thought
and
it was
and
a
she's
really good exchange.
she's a character that's basically saying why love is as complex as it is. Like it's
Yeah.
not the fairy tale.
Yeah.
It's you have fights, you have those points where it's like, God, I hate this person. Why am I with them? And then something happens and you realize, oh wait, I know exactly why I'm with them, and the reasons I hate them is really just in the moment, but not deep down or true to the relationship. And that's and this I think her name was like Gertrude, um, and this character kind of shows Mary that, and when Mary starts recognizing that in Ray, that's when what triggers her panic, and that triggers her to,
Yeah.
do this whole scheme and shoot Ray. Afterwards, she's driving around, she's having difficulty playing pool, doesn't really go after anyone, and she ends up doing something I never thought a character like her would do. She ends up going into a church, just a random church, and she wants to talk to a priest for confession, which is usually done on a specific day, and it's not that day. but she ends up, getting the priest into the confessional, and she starts trying to explain what she did. And she ends up getting on the nerves of the priest, which I thought was kind of funny, because she gets the priest to basically say, "Jesus Christ,"
Yeah.
just get to the point type of thing.
Yeah. And
And
drinks out of a flask afterward.
yeah, and has to drink out of a flask afterward because he's pushed her to his limits. But she's just trying to say, like, how do I move on? And of course he says, you could start by just being nice to people, one little deed at a time, and you do it until you just do it, because it's never going to be enough to make up for that, but you just do it. And that plus some Hail Marys and whatnot, and then, God will forgive you because that's what he's supposed to do and whatnot. And so she's like, I don't know how to do that, but I'll do my best. And he says that's the best method of pursuing the next steps. Just try your best. And so we see Mary really screwing up trying to be a good person.
That was kind of a funny part too.
Yeah.
I liked it.
What was one of the funnier parts that that stuck out with you when she was trying to help other people?
She's just waiting for somebody to help, and she goes to help the old lady cross the street, and the old lady's like, "What are you doing?" And she's just being rude, crude,
yelling at her, saying, "I'm trying to help you, old lady," and she's like, swatting her with her bag.
Yeah, and that's funny because she's still her. She's still crude. She's still, she's attractive enough. She can get away with rude behavior.
Right.
And, but yeah, it was just, and then the homeless guy, her first response was to tell him to get lost.
When he asked for change. She's like, well, wait a minute. How much money do you need?
And then she's like, wait, this is my opportunity. And the funny thing is she does that in a selfish way, right?
Right.
But isn't that how we get past our selfishness? I mean, we're selfish. We got to take care of ourselves.
Right.
We have to eat. We have to take care of, but sometimes, all right, fine. I'm supposed to help somebody. So in order to help myself, I got to go find somebody to help. And that's how she's helping these people, but she's also being selfless. So I thought it was a really good way to break that character, and a great actresses and cast in this would make their career, because it's a very deep, it's more than just visual. It's more than just the basic, somebody looks good and they look good on screen, they're doing things I like. There's some deep moments that you would only catch, that the actor needs to portray for the audience to get the full effect.
And also be able to have fun with it too. Like, to your point, when she helps out that homeless guy, she basically blurts out loud, she's doing it to make herself feel better. And then he gives her a speech saying, like, what would make me feel better? Having my house, being able to get my job back, being able to support my kids and see my daughter and all these things. And then she gets all indignant on him, but then realizes, okay, yeah, he's kind of right. And so she ends up deciding to, instead of just trying to go out of the way being helpful to strangers, which is what she thinks she's doing, she decides that she's going to go back to pool hustling, but she's going to be honest with the people she's hustling. Like, she basically says, this is what's going to happen. We're going to play some pool. I'm going to kick your butt. And this is how much I'm going to bet for you. And you can raise as much as you want, but just know this, you are going to lose. And it's basically like a challenge accepted moment for anyone that's on the receiving end of that, because they're all going to think, okay, she's cocky and arrogant, I can kick her butt in pool. And so they're always going to step up and try and challenge her. And because she keeps winning, because she's very good at this game, she has not deceived them at all. She's basically told them, like, what's on the line, and they have now willingly participated as opposed to being grifted into it.
Yeah.
And she ends up having fun with this. But now this gets us to, the next twist of the story, which is that we find out Ray survived the 3 shots. Apparently the EMTs got there in time. They were able to stabilize and remove the bullets. Or no, not remove the bullets. The bullets passed through him. So, because he had him in his chest and his back, as described. So he's alive and he's doing physiotherapy, and he can't move his right arm that well. He needs to do physiotherapy for like 8 more months before he can get full mobility back. But the physiotherapist says, yeah, your insurance is no longer covering covering you. They only do the first 5 visits, so you gotta pay out of pocket for the remainder of your needs. And he is really upset because he is getting close to broke at this point because he hasn't been able to work. He's running out of his the money he's saved while being a pool hustler. So what he does is he goes to good old Hal, the background guy that's been around,
Mhm.
who hooked Mary up with Ray when after their first encounter, and he's just like, if you can help me find her, I want to go and basically kill her. And we're just gonna leave it there on spoilers as to what happens afterwards, because we got this role reversal, right? So Mary is no longer willing to kill a guy that challenges her after she's taken all their money, falls in love with Ray, shoots Ray out of fear, and then Ray, having survived that miraculously, is like, I am no longer that nice guy anymore. I'm going to get my quart of blood. and you're just thinking now at this point, well, that is one way to escalate things, and again plays into some dramatic irony. We now know
Yeah.
as the audience that Ray is alive. Mary has still been operating under the idea that she killed the love of her life. What's going to happen when those two cross paths again? All I can say is go read the script because I'm recommending it to see how that next act materializes.
Yes.
Were you happy or confused when you read that Ray was still alive?
You know what? The first time I was like, I was kind of more reading it as, oh, this is just, this is this type of script that people write right now.
Mm-hmm.
Characters are just mean to each other because there's certain people we can be mean to,
Right.
and we got to have social commentary and, nihilistic culture. And so, oh, they just brought him back to now he can't play, his arm can't lift his arm. They just brought him back because they got to finish the story. That was, unfortunately, my perspective. First time reading it through was the script really had to win me over. And second time I was reading it, I'm like, oh no, I mean, that was a great twist, great surprise. I it was, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Um, but having read the whole thing, I'm like, yeah, no, I wouldn't do anything any differently. But it wasn't just cheap because, well, I don't know how to finish my story. There's a definite plan, and part of this script is unpredictable. The entire situation. It's a hustle movie. It's a
Yeah.
love movie. How can you predict that?
Exactly. It was the thing that I think is kind of clever with regards to the structure of this script is that it does structure itself as a hustle in regards to the story beats. It's setting you up, it's luring you in, it's then pulling the
Pull the
switcheroo
rug.
on you, pulling the
Yep.
rug out from under you, and you're like, oh my god, am I gonna be left holding the bag, so to speak, on this? But not in like a negative way, more like in a I gotta lean in now because you've got me, and without any getting into any of the spoilers of this, I will say the last act, and which is a mini movie of itself,
It
really
is.
does hit strong. Like it's very consistent with everything we've read up until this point. Um, and yeah, it poses a bunch of really good questions and then answers all of them up until the very last page.
Yeah.
And yeah, so God, like one, I want to go back just a little bit and talk a little bit about because you brought up something before the show that I wanted to highlight is that there's a fair amount of sex in this script, but
Mm-hmm.
one of the things the writer was quite specific to point out within the note is that these are supposed to be like quick instances and they're not supposed to be like gratuitous or voyeuristic.
Yes. And so when I read that, I was like, that was one of the first things that drove me nuts because it's like you're writing all this and then you're giving me instructions of how to read this. And I thought it was like, but I mean, you got to communicate that somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that typical? Do you write a note? Hey, this is how I want you to see this. But I also go, I would rather see this movie. I don't think you have to be so graphic because the more graphic you are, the less you're showing everything. you can tell so much just by showing she's with multiple guys. She's all over the place. You can show these things without getting into the graphic part of it, but whenever you talk about the sex, obviously that's easy to visualize.
Right. And
So
he does
it
it
did need
very
to be there.
he also does it very, very quick. So we're not lingering on this. It's not gratuitous.
Yeah.
He's specifically saying like you're just a quick witness, and then we're in and out. And
And we're
before,
not, yeah.
um,
And I thought that would make it great because it, you don't, it might have some language in it,
yeah,
but you don't have to add the
you don't have to
blood,
add
gore,
more.
and the sex, graphic sex to, restrict more of your audience. I
And
guess not restrict, but sometimes people are like, I want a romance movie, not a graphic movie.
right, exactly. And then, well, what I think this works to its benefit because the contrast is it starts out kind of quick with her and Ray, but then as the relationship goes and we get back to them, it's like it's no longer about like the sex. It's actually like they are making love, and it's like it's passion, and it's and
Yeah.
you understand that it's like it's about that connection, and and the way that the writer describes Mary's reaction to this, like warms her beyond measure, but at the same time also terrifies the hell out of her,
Yeah.
and I think that's to its standing because it's showing us the contrast overall. Like at first, it's like men were disposable, and now she's met Ray and she starts treating him kind of disposably. But because she keeps going back to him, and because he's there and he's pursuing her as well, and it's kind of this joint venture, it's like it's no longer disposable. It's now become something of meaning. And I think once she hits that threshold where it becomes meaningful, and then she, shoots him to try and see for herself, is it really meaningful? Is he's just another disposable guy, he's going to hurt you, what have you. She's trying to convince herself that this is a too good to be true thing, and in her efforts to do so she ends up exposing how vulnerable she was with Ray and how much she is now instantly regretting this decision, and doesn't know what to do next. And it's it's this bittersweet tragedy of sorts. And then and then she starts going off on this different path where she's still hustling but is giving full disclosure to the hustle. And now we have this guy Ray who's like, man, the woman who I fell in love with just shot me 3 times. And I don't know how to deal with that other than go into my base emotions, which is I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna shoot her, and maybe that won't make everything all right, but at least I'll feel better. And so he's kind of fallen into that whole pursuit of pleasure and what have you.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, Mary, she's taking responsibility with regards to her attitude, but she's not taking responsibility for the fact that she killed Ray. And even if she were in that state of Texas, given the witness and what have you, her efforts to try and take responsibility wouldn't give the justice that she knows and that we know should be issued.
Yeah.
So
But in
she's
a way, that's worse for her
well,
because
exactly, it'd be 100%
she
worse
knows she's guilty.
because yeah, exactly. The law would say that she is not culpable when we know the truth, and she knows the truth that she is. And it was crazy that there's a weird logic to her leaving the state after she does that, because she doesn't want the state to affirm her actions as just when she knows that they're not.
Yeah.
And two, it's like, and if they do, then that might actually poison her worse than being able to accept the fact that she killed the man of her dreams. So
Yeah.
I mean, I like the complexity to this. I'm thinking like this is really well thought of. It's not just uh, a quick fast and loose decision for the sake of it being a quick twist or turn. The writer really does explore this quickly and effectively in the story. That gives it a lot of meat for an actor and for an audience to kind of chew on as they're experiencing this tale. So I really dug how all this stuff was kind of set up and paid off.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you just broke it down into like 10 or 15 sentences of what happened, yeah, okay, she just got a redemption by going to the priest and being nice. But
Right.
it's more than that. And you getting that spelled out on the script, but man, it would That's why this script really needs a really good actor and actress, and I seriously think it'd make their career.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
this is a kingmaker of a story.
yeah,
Um,
and it's and I feel I feel embarrassed because my first reading I was like, oh, this is just a graphic whatever, just trying to, and then but as I'm reading it, I'm going, oh wait, no, this isn't just graphic. This isn't just words for words. This is thought out. This and yeah, maybe it is written like a hustle. It got me.
yeah,
I felt the way I was supposed to feel, and then I got the rug pulled, and then I'm feeling the way I'm supposed to feel. And the one thing I like about hustle movies is, have you ever seen King? No, sorry, not Kingpin. Digstown.
Digstown.
James Woods,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Louis Gossett Jr. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
James Woods' line.
That's like a TV series. Yes, yes, I remember that.
Oh yeah, no, it's an
Oh,
old
you're talking
movie.
about the movie. Oh no,
The
no, I know
movie,
what you're
yeah, I
talking about.
think
Yeah,
they
yeah,
did a TV series. It's
yeah.
based on a book, or
Right.
I think it's based on a book. I love that movie. I love con movies, but I love his line. They, people get hustled. They know they've been hustled. A good hustler hustles somebody, and the person doesn't say anything because they're embarrassed.
Right.
They also like the widower. She did part of her know she was getting hustled? Yeah, but she's got a young guy paying attention to her. She's spending her ex-husband's money. She's getting what she wants. I mean, that's easy to justify and say,
Hmm.
you can go ahead and do this to this person but you know, that's the difference between cons and hustles.
Right.
When you
Yeah.
make that person their idea, they never tell anyone because they're like, they know they've got ripped off, but they know that they're at fault. I mean, I love that conundrum because you're like, this person broke the law, but I'm the one who's ashamed and feels bad like I did something stupid because I did do something stupid.
Yeah. You
And
fell
in a
for
way,
it.
I kind of wanted something for nothing.
Right.
And that's what I love. I think they're a great way to tell a story. I love and and I would love that's why I think the end of this movie, it was harder to me to visual, and I'm not going to talk about it, but into the spoiler area, I think it could be a great con and hustle and romance. Just just great. Like you said, a kingmaker.
Oh, absolutely. Like again, the tone of this script reminds me a lot of like True Romance
Yeah.
and other 90s films that kind of cross into that area. And this is the type like there's a lot of strength to the characters here. They're really well defined. It's a small character count, like really only like 5 characters at the most. Um, and even then, 2 of those characters come in very late into the story, so you don't really need to worry too much about them. Um, it's an intimate story, and the other part too, it does the one thing that you want a good romance movie to do, which is you want your audience to root for this couple to make it.
Yeah.
And I will say like I'm really impressed. I'm just really impressed by the writer because I think he achieved that. I think Ryan Brennan really did the legwork needed to make this story work, to give us a character who, when we see them, they're in a bad place, but they don't realize they're in a bad place, and they have an attitude to them that, for us to watch, is entertaining, but for us to experience in person would be a nightmare. And
Yeah.
we get to see her journey of essentially being allowed to be vulnerable for the first time and knowing that it's not going, like, there's risk to it, but the people around her, specifically Ray, he's not there to exploit her or exploit her vulnerability. He's there to give her permission to be vulnerable because he will be there to support her and whatnot. And all he is asking is for that in return. And she has a very difficult time doing that, to the point where she ends up killing him and shooting him. Sorry. And the question you have to ask is like, well, that's not the type of vulnerability he was looking for that to be with in front of her, but that's what happened. So now she's got to live with this, and then he is now that he's partially recovered, he's now on his own type of like individual war path to basically deal with the emotions that and get closure that he wasn't able to get um, from a choice that was so out of left field, so unexpected from him. He needs answers, and you are there for the ride for the rest of the script.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not going to be too much of a surprise for the audience listening today, but let's make it official. Jake, would you give this script a green light or a pass?
I'd give it a green light. Yeah.
Yes, I'm in the same boat as you. This is the type of romance story that you kind of need. It's not schlocky. It's not overly sophisticated. It's pretty raw, and it takes you for a good ride. Like it's not it doesn't patronize you, and it doesn't play down to you, and make you it doesn't make you feel like you're going to a chick flick or anything of that nature. It's got stuff for everybody, as a date movie and as a romance.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. You know, you'd be happy to say you watched it and you
Oh,
enjoyed it. And
and,
maybe if you're just going because you're going for a date and you know your wife or girlfriend's picking the movie and you're like, fine, I'll go along, you get so surprised that how much you enjoyed it because you had no expectations going in. Those are some of my favorite movies I've ever seen
yeah,
because I had no expectation and it blew me away.
absolutely. So I can totally see why this made the top 10 of last year's blacklist. It's well deserved. Now, checking in with the Patreon members, they are in the same boat as us. They also greenlit with 100% of the people that participate in the poll voted to greenlight this script as well. So that's pretty awesome. so,
Yeah.
so I mean, like this is something I'd like to keep a good eye on. I hope it actually gets some traction. It'd be fantastic if this movie got made because I think it would warm a lot of people's hearts given the rawness, but also the sentimentality that it's conveying through this type of story. And yeah, my hat goes off to you, Mr. Ryan Brennan, for writing a really tight, fun script and also doing the legwork, not just on the romantic comedy or romantic part of it with a little bit of comedy, but also, I mean, Jake, you and I were talking about before the show. We played some pool, but we've never become experts or pros or anything. It's just for fun. But
Yeah.
the terminology that Ryan uses in here, I googled and verified, and it's as far as I can tell, unless I'm reading something wrong, it seems to be very authentic and bang on. So that I think sold the script even more is that I believed this world that he created. I believed how the hustle went down. I believed how he described the shots and how they work on the page and how they'd be done visually and how impressive they are and the difficulties and the thrills. It's like, you could put this in with like The Color of Money, from back in the day with Paul Newman and
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, and feel like, this kind of, it's not in the same universe, but it's got that same level of like, I believe it. And I
Yeah.
think that's awesome.
Well, yeah, you don't need to know exactly how much is on the line each game, but you know the risks are building, and um, you may not know uh, every strategy of playing pool, but you know when someone's won, and you know it was very good about telling where oh this he won, and that's what Mary wanted, and that would probably be the hardest thing to convey because the instructions right there on the script, but now it's up for the actor and actress to portray that without giving it away.
Right.
And but that I can see that challenge would be so rewarding for someone, an actor, an actress.
Oh,
So
absolutely. So, guys,
I I, I
yeah,
also liked where sorry, I didn't
no,
mean
go
to.
ahead, please.
You know, I liked that it was set in 2000 to 2008 in that area
Hmm.
because it pulls you out of the traps so many movies and shows are in right now where what is what is important socially, what message I have to send socially, which I don't agree with and I cannot stand
Hmm.
in movies. A commentary on he's commentarying on insurance, and only getting a few visits, but it's not based on today's commentary. It's based on 2008. It's expensive. People are going through tough time,
Hmm.
you know. So he almost had to pull us out of our own reality. But and any script that does not bring in dips of reality, I hate. I hate cell phones in movies. I hate social media in movies because you have the rule. You know, you say don't remind somebody of a better movie
Yeah.
when you refer to a movie. I look at that and go, don't remind me that I'd rather be on my phone. You know, I
Yep.
can't stand it because most of the time they're just product placement, and I can't stand when they're communicating by text, and
Yeah.
especially when that's the and there were cell phones and there could have been, but this was like so far. It could have been set in the '90s, even though it wasn't. You know, I
Oh,
love that
yeah.
there was no. It was all about pool romance, vulnerability, growing. 100% of that, and it's that's so refreshing to have that because stories just have so much of that. Oh, we have to send this.
Well, he got rid of a crutch, right? So modern day cell phones, the smartphone, the internet, GPS, satellite tracking, all those types of things are an easy crutch that writers who don't want to put in the work will rely on.
Yeah,
And this writer here said, you know what? There were still cell phones at the time, but they weren't smartphones. There wasn't really social media outside of maybe Facebook and some message boards. So you can get away with some parts. I mean, there are phones brought up in this because there are cell
yeah,
phones,
because they take a phone call.
but they're old phone styles. They're like the Motorola Edge or something. Is like this new
Yeah,
sleek model of the day. Um,
this
so
is about the time that people like that would have their own phones, and it would have been a big deal, but not. It's not a big deal in this story, and that's
exactly,
kind of
because
refreshing.
they make the focus not on, like, he makes the focus on these characters and not their location or what they're trying to do. And there are a number of romantic comedies and romantic dramas that still kind of do that. But the lesser ones kind of have it all about the text. Like you have the whole scene where, the woman and the guy, they're in their own bedrooms, but they're texting
Yeah,
to each other and the text
I
blips are
hate
popping up
that.
and they're just smiling and reacting. And you're
Yeah,
like, it doesn't feel authentic and it doesn't feel like a proper level of intimacy, whereas you would have them physically on the phone like in a Harry Met Sally, right, where they're having that phone call and you got that split screen and you can feel like the tension through it. I mean, that's one of the things I liked about the Fall Guy. They actually had a phone conversation between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, and they're talking and there's chemistry there. We're feeling it. There's energy there, which we wouldn't have gotten with text, but they're doing it over the phone. And it just feels like, okay, yeah, this is the traditional way you would do this stuff, because since the phone has ever existed and been used in movies, which has been since, pretty much its inception, they always like to have that idea of like, you've got this energy that's coming through the phone, but there are two different locations. And there's a tension there because you realize they're trying to be as close as possible. These two characters are trying to be as close as possible through this device, but they're so far apart. So you're playing with a different dynamic there. But when you're doing it with text, even though it's coming through, in the same rate with regards to like speech, the voice itself, the auditorial tone, and the subtext and the flirtation, it's all done in text, and there's the emotion is kind of pulled out of it at
yeah,
points, and you're basically dealing with the very same thing that we as writers struggle to do when we're writing stuff on the page, where we're like, I'm trying to put in some subtext, I'm trying to put something cheeky or flirtatious or funny in there, and I'm trying to make sure I do it through the dialogue and it's of itself, so that when the way that I set up this scene, I'm putting the reader and the director and the actors in the mindset of this is going to be a very fun, flirtatious scene, so that when you guys say it out loud, that comes across. But if you just relied onto the text itself, number one, you're robbing the actor of being able to do a full versatile performance, because now it's just you're just giving them physical directions of, okay, your eyes are focused on this and you're typing with your thumbs frantically to get the message across. There's no other reaction that you can do, because it's like, okay, you're reacting to reading this text, great. So would they react the same way as if they heard it, or they react the same way as you read it? And sometimes when you're reading something, your reactions are more muted. It's like, oh, maybe a smirk or
yeah,
a chuckle, whereas in person you're like, okay, you don't want to convey that smirk, so you got to hide it, so you're playing against, tipping your hand to the opposite person, because that's part of the flirtation. You don't get that fun stuff with a text message or the chat message or something. And I think that's probably why You Got Mail did not do as well as Sleepless in
Yeah,
Seattle.
it was only, and it only exists in that where we're all getting email, and that moment where email's kind of a new thing, cool thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And these romance movies do it so much. It's almost like they all do it. And the minute they do, I'm like, oh, I'm out.
right. And I
And
think that's why I like the fact that the writer here exercised a lot of discipline in not falling for those easy parts. Like, what would be terrible is if um, Ray wakes up and the first thing he does is he goes to his phone, he text messages Mary, "Hey, what the hell was that?" And then
yeah,
like you completely
that would
rob
just absolutely destroy the movie.
and the
Yeah,
story.
yeah,
Or the worst part is she goes on Facebook and finds out that he's still alive,
yeah,
or you get it on like the social media news network, like this, young man who was shot in the parking lot of this thing in Texas has
yep,
miraculously discovered, and it's this. No one has ever been. The props to the EMTs for being able to revive him. 3 shots, in a close grouping in his chest, and yet he able to. He's stable and he's going to be on the mend. And now the police are on the lookout for this person, which meets the description of what Mary was before she dyed her hair. It's just it's just not you take the wind out of the sails for the drama that's leading up to, because we're even in the last 20 years our world has shrunk exponentially since the dawn of the internet.
yeah, yeah. I
So
mean, we're talking, we're different countries
yeah, we're in different countries,
and
different time zones.
different time zones, but that's great.
Mhm.
But this is our real life.
Yeah.
We don't watch these. Well, like you started out the email. Drama is real life with the boring parts taken out.
Oh yeah,
Well,
that's the Alfred Hitchcock quote.
yeah,
That's
and
what.
this script is perfect. That is taking out all the boring stuff, and we get to watch. Yeah, some of it's well, not what we would do,
Right.
not how we would act, and like you said, it's fun to watch, horrible to live, and it's good to get that feeling from it. That's exactly what you're doing. That's why it stays with you when you watch it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I'm very happy to say, like, go seek out this script, guys. If you can't
Oh
find
yeah,
it through the Google search, what have you, um, my socials are in the description here. Reach out to me. My DMs are open. Email, what have you. Heck, you can contact me through the Patreon. I'll be happy to get this script in your hands so you can read it, and hopefully, in the next year or so, someone will be smart enough to have thrown some money down to put this into production. And if they get that sweet cast that's needed, this could be one of those fun romantic drama films that remind you what a good drama and a romance story is.
yeah, and that's exactly what uh, movies need right now. You should be
Yeah.
trying to get as many of these movies as you can, because there's going to be the big blockbuster movies, 3 or 4 a year. But if you have these peppered throughout the year, yeah, they're never going to make that kind of money, but they never have that cost. And people like to go to the movie together. Sometimes you go watch a movie that your spouse wants to see, and sometimes they watch a movie you want to see.
Yeah,
um,
and this one
it
here, I'd find it really
wouldn't be
difficult for
expensive.
both parties to not be enjoyed by it. I mean,
Yeah,
the only harm this movie could ever face is if it was relegated to streaming, where you have a difficult time finding it.
yeah, and see, I take a chance, put these out in the theater.
Yeah.
People want to go out. Last night, my wife told me, I don't care. We got to go out. And we would have went and saw the dumbest movie in the world, or went out to eat at the worst place in the world. She just wanted to get out. You know what? And every couple, every situation, it that's why these movies, they succeed so much. And then the word of mouth, they spread better than anything.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
I mean, there's half the time when people say, "You seen any good movies?" I'll tell them, "Hey, I saw a movie I didn't want to go see, but it was really good." because they're going and watching it with their wives and their girlfriends, and those are the ones I probably recommend the most because they've already heard about the big blockbusters. So having them on a streaming night, you're gonna turn on the TV, you're gonna go check on dinner, you're gonna go answer the door, you're gonna be on your phone.
Oh, exactly.
Just
And the other part too is like this is the type of script that fulfills the need that an audience is expressing, but is unable because they're so large of a group, unable to articulate. Like if
mm-hmm.
you were to ask 1,000 people, be like, would you enjoy watching a romantic movie about pool hustling? You wouldn't really get the best reaction from that, just on the surface level, because they're going
Yeah,
to be trying to think, well, how are you going to do a romantic drama about pool hustling, right? Because they're not thinking, that way. They're not thinking in the same type of creative space there. They might think of something completely different. Odds of them actually thinking of something that's in line with what the scriptive is incredibly unlikely. But the fact of the matter is that when you go to the root aspect of it, it's like, do you want to see a story about a woman who thinks she's got it all together get challenged by a man that we all like and that you're rooting for, and it makes her a better person, and it's her own fear that she has to fight in order to understand that this is what she needs, and that her in previous life, the previous way that she was living, was actually terrible for her? And wouldn't it be great to see if that it's kind of got an inspirational aspect to it with regards to you as a person, where maybe if you're one of the members of the audience that's in a rut, you're not in a relationship and you think being alone is better, but all of a sudden you realize, you know what, if you just take that risk and you maybe, get out of your own skin and explore the possibility of a future with someone, it might be incredibly rewarding. Like those are the themes that are in this type of script. And
yeah,
those are the themes that are the needs of what an audience has that most audiences aren't able to articulate because, again, you look at entertainment. There's so much of it. It feels like it's very disposable. Where you're like, I just want a feel good movie where I don't have to think and eat popcorn. But the truth be told is, what you really want is you want a movie that kind of hits you in the heart and captures a part of your soul and says, yes, this is what life is about. But it doesn't feel like it's a lecture. It doesn't feel like it's propaganda. It explores various questions about love, romance, commitment, fear, intimacy, all those types of things. And it kind of connects with you on a way that only great stories can do. Because if you want to see something that's like, I just want to shut off my brain and see, basic romance, you've got the Hallmark Channel. You've got a lot of scantily clad ladies and men on the internet that can fulfill
yep,
those basic disposable needs. But again, it's fleeting. What you want is something that gives you that connection and maybe makes you laugh and maybe pulls on your heartstrings, maybe gets a couple of tears out of you if it does it all right, because those types of stories give you permission to explore emotions with that come in a far more safe environment, as opposed to in the real world where if you have heartbreak, it's overwhelming, it's hard to reconcile. Or if you do find immense joy and it kind of breaks your composure a little bit there, it puts you in a little bit more of a vulnerable state. But if you're able to see that through a fictional character's eyes, you still feel the same things, but it's in a far more safer environment. And the other part too is it also either reinforces something that you believe or gives you new information to help strengthen your own convictions. I mean, that's what a great story is supposed to do.
yeah.
And I think this script kind of nails that. I mean, we're kind of building it up pretty high for expectation wise, but
It hasn't been made.
just gonna say it's a really well written script, and this is the type of script that if you start visualizing a cast to it and how it would play out on the screen, it's probably one of those movies that you'd probably want to see definitely in theaters, and then if it hits home video or on demand or what have you, watch it every couple of years as part of like a rotation of other romantic films or romantic comedies or
Yeah,
feel good films.
yeah, yep. And Glenn Powell is who I picture for. Of course, he's everybody's
He's the
for
new
every
it
movie
guy.
now.
Yeah, he's the new it guy. He might. I mean, I think he should be I mean, I don't blame him for picking every role that people want him for because that's
Yeah,
money. But
yeah.
hopefully he doesn't oversaturate himself like a Pedro Pascal or like
Oh
how
yeah,
Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly did. And
yeah,
around this time the script was set because they were in like everything. You gotta make sure that When you're a talent that's hot, you have to maintain your delicacy. And by
Yeah,
delicacy, I mean like you're around, but you're not everywhere. And every time we see you, we're really
it's not the
happy.
same. Yeah.
And we're not
Yep, and
rolling
that's
our
hard
eyes
to
of like,
do.
you again?
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Well, we grew up in the age where, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan would do these movies.
Yeah.
And then they kind of got a thing for doing these movies. And George Clooney, Julia Roberts, or something. You almost started expecting to see them in every drama and romance, and it's a good thing. But also, you realize, oh well, okay, now that's the only way I see you.
Yeah. And you
But
get
yeah, I
into the
mean,
audience typecast, which then crawls over into the studio typecast. And I will
yeah,
say
and
this: studios have actually surprisingly been very good at trying not to typecast their actors all the time. Only a few have been fallen into that, like Liam Neeson. He's been that action star for way too long. But it's a different field out there, and I think this is the type of script that kind of like Anyone But You, which it was an okay romantic comedy, but it was
yeah,
kind of like a lot of low hanging fruit stuff. It was really like, let's just go out on a vacation to Australia with the cast and crew.
yeah,
This one here, it's takes place mostly in Texas, and it's an intimate in a bunch of bars that have pool halls and into them. It's something that it's more about what's going on with these characters as opposed to the lavish locations that we can take this cast and crew to. And
yeah,
I think that gives it some more substance than the whole vacation wedding storyline, which has been kind of used fairly frequently over the last few years, and it's also been used a few times. I've seen in screenplays. Heck, even on this show, we had a couple of those vacation wedding scripts. uh,
yeah,
so I like that this one was kind of back to form, so to speak.
yeah. The you could easily somebody go watch this because they're thinking they're watching a show about pool, or watching a show about a con, or you could actually give it multiple trailer ways to market it, based on your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it disappointed either way,
Yeah,
because the story you would get what you came to see, but also get a good story. So
absolutely. Okay. Well, you know what, Jake? I think we've said as much as we can about this script without getting into spoilers. I want to thank you for spending the time with me this evening, and all of you out there listening tonight. Uh, yeah, unless you have another final thought on tonight's script, I think that's it for us, isn't it?
it is.
All right, man. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We'll be back next week. However, next week, because it is the Valentine's Day weekend, that's a recorded show, so it will be airing at the same time as a premiere. But unfortunately, I won't be here to talk a script with you. It'll be myself and another guest on the recorded show. I will, of course, be doing my romantic boyfriend duties that weekend. And I hope for all of you out there listening, if you have a loved one, you're spending a wonderful weekend, Valentine's Day weekend with them next week. For now, have a wonderful weekend for this week. And if you are able to, please consider joining the Patreon. The first week is free at the base tier. You find out what script we'll be reviewing on the following week. Plus, you also get to participate in commentary. So if you leave a comment with regards to the script that we're reading, we will read it here live on the show. And you also get to vote whether you would greenlight or pass the scripts that we are covering on here. I want to thank everyone for listening. As always, have a wonderful weekend. And never forget, guys, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.